The real question I want to ask is, well, why is Bill Belichick doing this? Like, why is he like pussyfooting around the situation? Why is he not going out definitively and saying Mac Jones is our starter? And truthfully, I guess once you boil it all down, obviously there's theories out there that he wants to make the kid earn it, and the fact that he's trying to put the kid in his place because Mac Jones is more of a very not whiny, but a very much like, tell me why we're doing this kind of thing guy, right? And I think that's starting to rub Bill Belichick the wrong way. And I think deep down, Bill Belichick doesn't really trust Mac Jones. I think if there's anything we can take away from the last 2 or 3 weeks, I think Bill understands maybe Mac Jones isn't the guy. And I think you're starting to see some of his coaching reflect that. I've never seen Bill Belichick make a self-preservation move like he did a couple nights ago on Monday Night Football, right? He basically went out there, saw in three series that Mac Jones just wasn't doing it, and they're down 10-0, and instead of riding it through with the guy, taking the L, sure, at least you got the ability to get some live game reps, and Max was starting to feel good about himself. He quickly pulled the hook just to win that game, right? So I wanted to ask you, Puma, what do you think is happening here? Why is there so much noise around why Bill Belichick isn't possibly giving his full weight of support behind Mac Jones?
I think, he might be off on the Mac Jones train, and I think maybe it's coming down to the fact that if he admits that Mac Jones is not the guy, it's going to be viewed as another failed draft by Bill Belichick, especially in the post-Brady era when everyone was pretty much anointing this kid as the next Brady as soon as he hit the stage.
Besides me.
Yeah, for the majority of New England, Jay, has been anointing him as the guy.
Pretty much when Tom Brady.
When he hit the stage, like that's the reality, and it's like, oh, he fell right to us. It's chess, not checkers, and honestly, Jay, I think you're seeing, maybe it's a little bit of a microcosm in society, and this is maybe a deeper dive than anything, but I don't think anybody coming into the NFL anymore is just going to be a yes sir, no sir, yes sir, no sir, especially if you're a first round draft pick. It's like, okay, I just went from Josh McDaniels, who had a competent offense and was running this for 20 years with Tom Brady, to now I'm with, two buffoons that have never called an offensive snap in the first place. I was going into this offseason assuming that this was what the plays we were going to run based on maybe conversations that he had with coaching staff in the offseason, and then all of a sudden, Joe Judge and Matt Patricia get hired. Yeah, I'm not a Mac Jones fan, but I don't blame him to ask questions of, this is historically supposed to be the big year 2 leap. Why am I kind of getting, torpedoed here?
But Puma, like, I get that, and I understand people are making that excuse quite a bit about Mac Jones has a right to ask why this is happening. No, he has no freaking right. I'm sorry, he does not. And I know in this generation, yeah, there's a lot more of, I want to know why this is happening. I want to be involved in the process. I want to already be there kind of thing. But there are people out there like Patrick Mahomes, who by the way, I'm not a big fan of. You keep hearing about how coachable he is. Like, yes, he'll make mistakes, but he wants to be coached toward it, and he is very coachable. There are still guys out there in the NFL, and obviously Bailey Zappi is a perfect example of that. When he comes in, it's a basic yes, no. Right. I'm gonna make this throw no matter what. I'm not gonna go give you a bunch of crap. And I think it's a fault of Mac Jones's character. And I've been riding this home for about a year and a half now. There's just something about the kid that I don't like. I don't like his mental makeup, and this is part of it. His entitlement.
Yeah, but Jay, what would happen I don't know, now? What would happen? What would have happened 5 years ago if Jacoby Myers essentially put the coaching staff on blast, saying he didn't understand what the game plan was going into this situation, why they're yo-yoing the quarterbacks, and nobody really understood what was going on until 90 minutes before kickoff when Adam Schefter and Tom Pelissero kind of floated it out there that, oh, we're going to play 2 quarterbacks tonight. He would not be on the team. Jonas Gray was cut for less for being on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So it's not just like Mac Jones asking questions now. You have other players in that locker room there asking questions of the coaching staff and what's the game plan and the situation. And everyone thought this was going to be a playoff team, even though they pretty much backed it in the playoffs last season. If everyone's coming to this conclusion of why are we doing this, that's more than just a Mac Jones thing. That's a locker room problem.
Well, that's a good point, and you're right, because Mac Jones talks like that. Kendrick Bourne is basically in the doghouse because he questioned all of this. But let me ask you this: like, why do you think these players feel emboldened to say something, to speak out when, generally speaking, a Patriots locker room has never spoken out, right? So, is it a simple thing as Bill Belichick doesn't have the same leverage anymore? I mean, that's what we can point to, right? These players feel emboldened to talk like that, and I'm sorry, like I just don't seem to understand how Bill Belichick, everything we've known about him for 20 years, all of a sudden loses one player in Tom Brady and the whole culture falls apart. Like I find that fascinating that one guy in Brady was able to carry the message throughout the locker room, the big stick in the locker room that would disseminate Belichick's message, and now he's gone, and now all of a sudden everybody's freaking chirping.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we saw it last year. I mean, there were reports and theories that the team pretty much quit on this defensive staff coming out of the bye week. That's why they backed it in the playoffs.
So now we've established that Bill Belichick has a cultural problem in the locker room. He might be losing some players. He's not really a smart offensive mind. On defense, yeah, he'll have 3 or 4 games a year where he's beautiful. Most of the regular games on defense, he beats up on the Bears and the Lions, and he gets torched by Justin Fields and running quarterbacks and Lamar Jackson and Buffalo Bills. So what you're saying is basically Bill Belichick, all he's good for is basically 5 defensive genius game plans a year. That's basically what we've been drilled down to.
Pretty much. I mean, look at Monday night. Everyone had New England dropping damn near 50 points on Chicago, and especially against an offensive line that has pretty much gotten Justin Fields killed for all the way from last season up until Monday night. I thought, Chicago was going to get plastered and they were just going to be taken to the woodshed. But, I mean, they couldn't really generate a whole lot of pressure for a mobile quarterback. He put up the most, I think the second most rushing numbers against a Bill Belichick defense behind Lamar Jackson. And, they had chances to win that game. I mean, Fields almost coughed it up a couple of times just getting the snap. But he didn't have anything. He had nothing for, up until now, an anemic Chicago Bears offense. And they're kind of going up another anemic offense in the New York Jets outside of running the football. And I'm not saying Zach Wilson has wheels, but he's mobile enough to maybe make an off-script throw or maybe mobile enough to move the chains. I mean, this is going to be another heavy dose of a running game plan against the Pats, and until they prove that they can stop this rushing attack from anybody in general, they're going to get a heavy dose of Brian Robinson and Michael and the other running back. I'm spacing his name, and maybe a couple of wide receivers with some speed. Yeah, James Robinson and the other fella. I'm spacing his name. I can't remember it, but you're going to get a heavy dose of a rushing attack until, New England either cries uncle or they make them do something else and throw the football.
Yeah, and a final point on this, Puma, before we round out the conversation. Robert Kraft brought some heat down on Belichick, so, he's got to basically win a playoff game this year, right? In a perfect world, it'd be great for him to make a deep playoff run. We're all happy and restore faith in the Belichick way, blah, blah, blah. But at the minimum, we're going to need to make a playoff appearance and win a playoff game. Do you think that happens this year?
Nope.
And what do you
think? If it was going to happen, they needed to beat Chicago on Monday.
And then what are the repercussions, if any, are going to come out of not winning a playoff game this year?
Well, any other franchise, the head coach would be fired. And the way that, Kraft was coming down with the edict from him on high, saying that he's tired of not having a playoff game at Foxborough and they haven't won a playoff game in X amount of years, logic would say that Bill Belichick would be packing his bags. I don't think Kraft is going to have the stones to fire Bill, but do I think it's a bridge too far for him to go to Bill and say, we are shaking up this coaching staff. Your idiotic son with the mullet has done absolutely nothing in defense in the secondary. And these 2 buffoons on the offensive side of the football, and Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, aren't really doing anything that you were telling me about with this zone running scheme of yours that you wanted to implement out of nowhere in training camp. Either you change it up with the coaching staff or you can find new jobs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think in a perfect world, that's all tough talk from Robert Kraft about how he wants a playoff win this year. In reality, Robert Kraft is neutered. He's basically a neutered dog. He's not going to do jack shit to Bill Belichick if he doesn't win a playoff game. I mean, he's still going to roll in next year with his kids on the coaching staff, and maybe he'll tweak the offensive staff. But the main root of the problem of Bill Belichick's arrogance and ego is still going to be there, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that is what Robert Kraft signed up for when he gave the keys to a franchise over to Bill Belichick. Like, if he pushed out the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, I'm sorry, he's not going to go ahead and be pissed off that he won another playoff game this year.
But here's the thing, though. If he does that, that's fine. He's the one that's cutting the checks up in Foxborough. If they miss the playoffs and it's not even close, I mean, at this point, if they miss the playoffs, they miss the playoffs. They did not meet the edict that Kraft wanted. But at this point, if they miss the playoffs, I don't want to hear Kraft in front of a microphone next year saying that he's pissed about not making the playoffs, because it's clear as day, Jay. It's clear as day is like what the problem is. Mm-hmm. Like it's a bad staff. The roster leaves something to be desired. They cry poor when it comes to spending money to draw in free agents. They've been resting on their laurels for so long, and Buffalo not only overtook them, but they've essentially lapped the field 3 times with what the New England Patriots have
Buffalo. We're last in the AFC East. The Miami Dolphins have better outlook than we do. For God's sake, the Jets are playing at a better level than we are. Like the stuff that happened Monday night with the short leash and the pulling and making a complete clown show of your quarterback room and basically losing the quarterback situation as a whole, like that happens to Jets types of organization, not the great Bill Belichick. Ooh, chestnut checkers.
So it's gonna be a fun time.